This week's reading focused on the progression of the civil rights movement in the years following the decision to integrate schools from Brown v. Board of Education. Brown made unconstitutional the segregation of race in secondary and elementary schools. Although well-intentioned, Brown set no immediate deadline for integration to take place, opting instead to allow segregationist institutions to integrate with all deliberate speed. In response to the sluggish pace of integration, civil rights groups such as the SCLC and SNCC claimed the mantle to deconstruct the South's unequal racial policies. One of the first successful instances of integration brought about by a united community of African Americans and their white, pro-integration counterparts took place in Montgomery, Alabama. The Montgomery bus boycotts proved the potential unity of African Americans. Contrary to the typical stereotype of the time, blacks successfully put an end to segregation on Montgomery's bus system. This time period saw the rise of MLK as a charismatic leader of the civil rights movement, but equally important was the bottom-up support offered by college-age integrationists. Without many supporters within the youth to ferry boycotters to and from work, the Montgomery bus boycott would have been an even greater challenge. The immense importance of college-age support in the civil rights movement is mirrored in the spread of nonviolent sit-ins across cities in the Deep South. After a group of 4 young students attempted a sit-in in Greensboro, North Carolina, the same practice erupted in Nashville, Tennessee, from the efforts of student organizations such as the Nashville Student Movement. As students across the country sat in at various segregated lunch counters, opposition berated them with insults and threw ammonia and itching powder at them. But the students persisted. As one group of their peers were thrown from their seats, the others rose to take their place. The civil rights movement collected momentum, yet unlike efforts of years past, protesters didn't just confront injustice through legal means. Rather, they fought in person. And this time the youth mobilized. The sit-ins climaxed after an assassination attempt on a black attorney, Mr. Alexander Libby. As students marched on the Nashville courthouse and bluntly asked their mayor if he supported segregation, he felt compelled, as a man, not a politician, to tell them the truth. He said he thought it morally wrong to refuse black service after selling them merchandise mere feet away. The students won a victory, but segregation remained persistent in the South. Another method civil rights activists employed at this time were termed freedom rides. The most famous of these integrated bus rides through the Deep South ended in violence and federal involvement. As the Freedom Ride moved through Alabama, after its original occupants ended their protests for fear of their lives, and the youth of the civil rights movement once again remained resilient as they took over the act of nonviolence, racists, common men and women of Alabama, demanded the exit of the bus's inhabitants. As pro-integration students defiantly exited the bus from its front door, they were beaten by the opponents of their cause. But as they refused to fight back, they showed North and South alike the brutality of those who would deny them equality. The violence forced the Democratic parties in Robert Kennedy's hands, as they took their first steps to becoming the party of civil rights. Integral to remember, however, are the efforts of young college-age supporters of the civil rights movement. Without their passion, nothing would have been able to propel the cause past the hatred of its opponents.